InDesign Exercise 1. Download the Exercise 1 materials from Blackboard. And you have two PDFs. The first, the Exercise GRDS 1375 ID Exercise 1 PDF. That's the instructions. The second one, ID Exercise 1 Final. That's what we're creating. That's what it's going to look like. Then you've got a folder with text in it. That text is what we're going to use in the file that we're creating. So open the PDF, the Exercise 1 PDF, the instructions. And we'll go step by step here. So we're going to create a new document. So open InDesign. I've got two monitors, so if you don't see something happening, it's because it's coming from the other monitor. So we're going to make a new file, and it's going to be 8 inches by 8 inches. So you're going to go along this right-hand side here. Make sure you're working in inches when you're putting these numbers in. So you can select and type, you can down arrow, whatever's going to be quicker. You can use tab to go between these different windows. Okay, so 8 by 8, 3/4 of an inch, 0.75 inches, margin on all sides. So if this is linked, all 4 of these margins are going to be the same. Scroll down. Okay. 4 columns with a 0.2 inch gutter. The gutter is the space between the columns. All right, and you're going to have to put this in manually. 0.2 IN. 0.125 inch bleed. 0.125 is 1/8 of an inch. Bleed is space beyond the edge of the paper. In printing, for color to go all the way to the edge, you actually extend it beyond. So when it's trimmed, when it's cut, you don't have to worry about if the paper slipped a little bit or stretched, that you're going to get a little bit of white on the edge. That just looks like a mistake. So by extending it 1/8 of an inch past the edge, you allow a margin of error. All right, so that's it for our page setup. All right, I moved everything to my laptop monitor, so this isn't confusing. Or no more confusing than it needs to be. All right, so we're going to make horizontal guidelines. And those are listed at the top here. So 2 inches, 2.6, 3, and 6. So the easiest way is to just write that down. And then what that means, you start in the ruler, click and drag, and this is going to be a guideline. And the Y number that's appearing to the right of the arrows is where you're currently located. And so 2 inches, let go of the mouse. Now we're going to go 2.6. Three inches. and 6 inches. Okay, so those are your horizontal guidelines. Guidelines are layout aids. Those are just to help you with your layout. You don't have to use them. In general, they make things easier. Also, none of the things that currently are displayed print. None of these lines, the margins, the column outlines, the guidelines, the bleed, none of that prints. That's all just to help you in your layout. All right, so now we need our vertical guide at 0.95. So same idea, except now you come from the left, pull it out, 0.95. And I was having a hard time getting it to hit the 5. Up here on the top, as long as you're using Essentials Classic, you get this top bar here. You can type in 0.95. Hit return, and that's where that's at. So that's your basic framework for what we're going to do. All right, so now we're going to take this visual communications text. So we're going to place that, and that comes from the folder of materials that you downloaded. So within InDesign, go to File, Place, select that folder, and visualcommunications.txt. Open that. Now we're going to use this for a number of different places. So I'm going to place this off the page, and I'm going to click and drag a frame for it, and then it'll place it within there. So now I can cut and paste from this. Okay, so I'm going to flow this into 2 columns that are linked. So I don't need to do that again. So flow it into 2 columns, start in one column, and just start off to the left edge, and it'll flow. It'll recognize the column and then flow down until it runs out of room. And then this little icon down in the bottom right, if you click that, it'll load the remainder, and that flows into the next column that you assign it to. These are threaded. If I change the space for one, the next one takes it up. So those are linked together. All right, so now we're going to make this 8/16. When you see a fraction like this, when it's talking about text, the top number is the type size, and the second number, the bottom number, is the leading, the space baseline to baseline. So I can double click, get the text icon, Command A, Control A on the PC, and so that it selects all. And now I'm going to change my typeface, and again I'm going to use Arial 8/16 regular. So if I click into the typeface and I start typing Arial, it'll find it, which is a lot quicker than scrolling all the way through. So here we're regular. These next two boxes over here, the first is the size. I'm going to make this 8. And then the one below that is the baseline to baseline spacing, the leading. I'm going to make that 16. And then the instructions call for flush left, which is just the paragraph layout where it's even on the left-hand side and ragged on the right, depending on which word fits on which line. If you go to the paragraph on the top bar here, the A, that's all your text settings, typeface settings. This backwards P is a symbol for paragraph. Those are your paragraph settings. So we don't want hyphenation, so we're going to uncheck this box so there's no hyphenation. So that's your basic text frame. And I'm going to make these equal. All right, so now we're going to make a rule. A rule is just a line. So 2 points on the 3-inch guide and a line at the third column. So if we look, if I open up that other PDF so we can see what it's going to look like when it's done, this here is the horizontal rule. So it's going to come from the left and end at the third column, at the outside edge of the third column. So to do that, you could use the pen tool if you're comfortable with that, or the line tool. Okay, and before you start, right now I'd be making invisible elements. You have to have a color assigned. So the stroke, I'm going to make black, and I'm going to make it 2 points. And applying that. Sorry, I still had my text selected. Do that again, line, black, 2 points. All right, and so I'm going to be at the 3-inch rule. And I'm going to start at the bleed, click and drag to the right, and to make it easy so that it doesn't wander, if I hit the shift key, it'll constrain it to being perpendicular or parallel to the bottom of the page. Take it to the edge of the third column, let go of the mouse first. There's my 2-point rule. Okay, so that's a little tight on the text. I use the selection tool, select both blocks of copy, and I can just bump those down with the arrow keys. Okay, now we're going to make a vertical rule. 1 point on the margin. Okay, and that's going to be this vertical one down here. So that's going to be on the 3/4 inch margin. And it's going to go to the 6-inch horizontal guide. So again, I can start from the 6-inch line, click and drag down, hold the shift key, stop at the bleed, let go of the mouse, make that 1 point. That's done. Thoughts on design. We're going to type these words in, and they're going to be 33-point Arial bold. The top at the 2-inch guide. So with InDesign, you have to, it's like area type in Illustrator. You have to click and drag, make space for it. So I'm going to make the box big enough. Okay, there's my text. Select the text. This is going to be Arial bold. Start typing it. And it's going to be 36. So the pull down gives you standard sizes. Okay, and there's a specific location for that. Line the T stem at the column. So that means it's going to line up along this second column. So again, go to the selection tool, slide this over, and then with the arrow key, get that so that it's just lined up on the second column. And that's at the 2-inch guide on the top. We're going to type in Paul Rand, comma, New York. That's upper and lower case. Okay, so text tool, click and drag, make yourself a box. Paul. So a shift return is a line break. And a line break is different than a paragraph. You have different settings available. So I'm going to do it, hold down the shift key, hit return, type Rand, hold down the shift key, hit return twice because there's a space there. New, shift return, York. And I need to put a comma after Rand. Okay, now I can make all of these one font and then come back and just change the weight for the second part. So these are going to be Arial black and regular, 16:19. So again, go to Arial. I'll go to regular, 16:19. And Paul Rand is going to be in the black. So that's just under the weight. It's not available under that form of Arial. And all of these, depending what's on your computer, on your hard drive, if you don't have these fonts or you don't have that weight, use something similar. So for me, I have Avenir, which is very similar. It's not perfect. And I've got heavy, not black, but it's in effect or in essence the same thing. Okay, so it's close enough for this exercise. Then I want to line this up so it's on this 0.95 vertical guide. And then I want to line the top of the letters with that 6-inch horizontal guide. Okay, reflections. So we're going to place this, and then it's going to be 17-point Arial regular. So I'm going to tighten up this box so it doesn't overlap with other things. The shortcut for that is Command Option C under Object. Okay. So I'm going to place and I'm going to choose that reflections.txt. Just anywhere, drop that. And then I can change the size of this frame that I created. Okay. Double click on it to get the text tool, Command A. Change the face, Arial. And this is going to be Arial Regular 17 point. Okay, and then we're going to track this so it right aligns with the T in thoughts, the second T. It doesn't make sense. All right, so that fit pretty well as it is. Tracking, you've got kerning, which is the space between two letters, this control here, and tracking, which is the space between letters for a whole line. So if I increase that, I'm going to be beyond my third column. I can tighten it up. So the way this one's working out, that's right there. All right, and it's on the 2.6 guideline. Okay, so now we've got to place the introduction text. So that's this text along the top here. So place, introduction. I'm going to create the shape for it. Double click to get the text tool. Command A to select all. All right, 7 on 32. Type size is 7 points on 32 points of leading, Arial Regular from the top margin. 7 on 32, Arial Regular. So Arial. So 7 on 32 is small size on a lot of leading. And it starts at the top margin in the second column. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in, spacebar command. Just because something's provided to you doesn't mean it's correct. So if you're working and using InDesign, clients are going to give you text, they're going to give you images and so forth. There's typos in this. If you don't find and fix the typos, even though the client gave it to you, it's your fault. It's just the way it works. It's not fair, but it's the way it works. So that should be illustrations. This should be capitalized. So it's your job as a designer to go through and find things like that. So also in the body copy, you have to read it. You can use spell check, but visual communication of any kins. Well, that doesn't make sense. So of any kind. Okay, so you can go through here and obvious ones, just go ahead and fix those. One other thing to be aware of is there can be additional spaces if somebody hit a space bar too many times, or there can be an extra paragraph return in here. If you go to Type, Show Hidden Characters, it will show you where all of the spaces are. These are my shift returns that I made. Paragraphs will show up as the backwards piece, so these are separated by paragraph returns. And the hashtag at the end means that's the end of the text. So those are important to be able to display, because sometimes somebody's used spacing instead of tabs. They've hit paragraph returns multiple times. There's just a number of things that can be in there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead now and use the spell check. So if I go to Edit, Spelling, check spelling, and it's going to start. So that one's wrong. That's the correct word. I'm going to change that. Beautiful is misspelled. Select the proper one. Change it. Okay, that should be capitalized. Harmony's misspelled. Billboards. So that's done. That's it. So save the file with InDesign. So IN_EX1_ your first initial and your last name, and then the file will save as .indd. Save that, and then also, just to have you do it, after you've saved the file, go to File, Export. And when you export from InDesign, it'll save it as a PDF. I mean, there's a lot of other choices, but we want a PDF for right now. Just make sure you know where it's going, you know, where you're saving it to. All right, so, and I'm sorry, ID, not IN. So when I save that, it's going to ask me for settings within the PDF. You can leave these, just leave it alone for right now. We'll go through it at some point and talk about all these different choices. The only one is, if you check this view the PDF after exporting, it'll bring it up just so you can see what it looks like. All right, and so one of the settings within the PDF was I asked for crop marks. So that's showing me the crop, and it's showing me that my rules are bleeding. Okay, save the file, submit it on Blackboard.